right, welcome in everybody to another episode of That's Bingo Sports Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joe Hendry, joined here by one of my other co-hosts, Jacob Beach. Beachy, how are you tonight?
I am fantastic. I just saw Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles once again blow a fourth quarter lead. Nothing could possibly make me happier on a Monday night than watching that. So I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing real well right now. Padres are up 2-0. Chargers had a dub this weekend. Great weekend of football. Lots of crazy things happening. So we'll dive into that here in a little bit. Kyle is not with us tonight. He is out in the great state of California in LA.
He died from the Rams game this weekend. I can say that.
Yeah, we promise you he is not avoiding us because of the Rams game, although he is down bad. He is busy.
He wants to avoid me.
He does. He does want to wish all the bingo squares, though, all of our listeners, the masses of them, let them know that he will be back eventually. Hopefully with good Rams news, although we doubt it. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we dive into some NFL stuff, Beach, I love Jim Harbaugh, man, and I just know that he would love us too, based off of his interview that came out, and he says he likes guys that love football, and that is us. And I am thankful that he is my coach today. That's just something I wanted to get out.
I never had like a positive opinion of Jim Harbaugh, and I think it's because of all the Stanford years where he was torturing Arizona.
The Niners.
And then he went to the Niners, and they continued to torture us. But seeing him with the Chargers and kind of at Michigan, I have grown to have a fondness for him that I didn't have before. And I think that will only continue to grow. I do like how he coaches football. I like his hard-nosed style. It's very hard to win at Stanford, and he really started a string of success there that obviously David Shaw followed up. So
yeah,
no surprise to see him in the NFL and seeing him get the Chargers kind of on the right track. You and I both had talked about this on the podcast, off the podcast. We both felt very confident in his abilities to get the Chargers, rocking and rolling, and certainly has looked like that through the first 2 weeks.
Yes, sir. Well, we will get into that one in a little bit, but let's dive in, man. A lot of football games this past weekend. That early slate was crazy. 10 games. I don't know what the NFL was thinking, but let's get into. Let's start with Thursday. I feel like that would make sense. Obviously, Bills, Dolphins. Man, the Bills walloped on Miami. Brutal loss for them. Obviously, Tua coming out with another concussion. Not something you love to see. What? Outside of that, that's obviously the big story. What was your takeaways from that?
My takeaways were that my Dolphins division pick is cooked. That is not going to happen. But also, Buffalo looks better than I was thinking they were going to look. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. I knew they would be good even with him. But their defense has played pretty well, and they still look like the class of the AFC East. Especially with how the Jets have kind of stumbled out of the gate. The Dolphins now have the big Tua question mark. So that kind of leaves them in the driver's seat, at least early on. So, that was my biggest takeaway, is that Buffalo has just firmly cemented itself once again in the driver's seat for the AFC East. And it's going to be hard for either one of those teams, I think, to topple them out of it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Josh Allen attempted 19 passes, which is... we'll talk about this in a little bit as well, just in a different way. But, when your quarterback doesn't have to win you the game week in and week out, that's just such a good thing, man. But then if you have the guy who can go do it, obviously that's great to have them. But it's great to see. We'll go for it.
I was going to say, it's nice having them having the ability to make the superstar plays when they need to.
Yeah.
But not relying on them to be a superstar every single play to win a game.
Yeah.
We've seen that with quarterbacks where that is the expectation, and they have to be spectacular 95% of the game in order for a team to just even be competitive in that game. And that's never a recipe for success. But I think what the Bills have done a good job of, despite some of the pieces that they've lost, is they still have a good surrounding system with Josh Allen. They like James Cook. They get him involved in the run game, as we saw on Thursday night. That was another one of my big takeaways, is just he was really utilized more than he had been in the previous year and in week
Hmm.
1 against Arizona.
And inside
And
the 5 too, which is big
exactly,
for him.
exactly. I mean, I think they had to, being that Josh Allen's left hand is hurt, but
Yeah,
you look at that and you have to kind of protect your quarterback, and so getting James Cook more utilization in the goal line situations, and Josh Allen, just like you said, only throwing the ball 19 times, that still can be a recipe for success. Where yeah, his stats might not be eye popping and they might not be MVP stats, but it is a more sustainable way to win football games than Josh Allen having to be a superhuman every single game.
yeah,
And we've seen it, and we've seen him be that good, but at some point the shoe eventually drops, right? And you eventually run into health issues or something along those lines. And so I think Buffalo's doing their best they can to say, look, we're not going to just rely on Josh Allen to win us every single game. We still have a good enough team to spread the ball around and still win these games.
yeah. I'm definitely impressed with the defense. Obviously, no Matt Milano, who's their big star in the middle with that bicep injury. Teron Johnson was not in the game against Miami either. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was, and two or three picks. Um, just wasn't a pretty game for Miami in general. Obviously, Achan played well.
Yep.
Um, but I think Buffalo had a good answer for all that speed.
Mm-hmm.
And they start 2-0. There's a lot of unknowns I still think around the roster with the pass catchers and obviously
Yeah.
the defense being thin and whatnot. But I'm really curious to see how they'll be able to hold up over the course of a season. But starting off 2-0, always the way you want to begin.
What I have been really impressed with them too is just how they suppress deep passing attacks so
Yeah.
far.
Yep.
Obviously, the Cardinals game, Marvin Harrison had 1 catch for 4 yards, and nobody else really was getting anything deep. And then Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had, really just pedestrian days, and they were held without the big play, which Miami so often relies on to really open things up for their offense. I think Buffalo just does a good job of keeping everything in front of them and making teams drive down the field to beat them. And that's a hard thing to do consistently.
Yeah.
And teams, in the NFL are good enough to do it. That's why they can still give up points. But eventually the offense will make a mistake in the terms of a penalty or a negative play. And then all of a sudden you're behind the chains. And that's when the Bills can really get to work and start, using their pass rush and getting after the quarterback.
Yep. 100%. So they went for the Bills. Miami. I saw Tua he's not expecting to retire. We'll see if they'll be able to stay afloat kind of
Yeah.
while he comes back, hopefully healthy, and hopefully he makes whatever the right decision is for him. Hopefully he makes that right decision and is happier and healthy for it.
Yeah.
So let's get into. You mentioned the Cardinals there. Let's start with there, man. Kyle's not here, obviously, but a
Yes.
41-10 just drubbing of the Rams. You were there.
We were there in
Marvin
attendance.
Harrison breakout game. Kyler Murray was borderline perfect. Like you could not ask for more.
Well, his passer rating was indeed
He
perfect.
was, yeah, he was statistically, analytically perfect. Um, Man, tell me about it. Tell me what the experience was like. What you saw.
I think the biggest thing is, one, the stadium was electric watching Marvin Harrison Jr. score those touchdowns. Like, that was the biggest thing I noticed, is like the fans were excited to watch him play and really wanted to cheer for him. And him scoring those big plays, the place was rocking right away.
Yeah.
And that's something that State Farm Stadium, the home of the Cardinals, has not been known for in the recent years. It's been known as a building that a lot of opposing fans can come in and kind of drown out the Cardinals fans and take over. And there were a good amount of Rams fans on there, in there on Sunday, but they didn't have it much to cheer about. And so just somebody like that can bring energy and excitement to a fan base is great. The second thing that I really noticed was that Kyler Murray is almost back to his pre-ACL tear form.
Yeah.
And for once, he has an offense that is catered to support him and not completely rely on his elite skill set to win the game.
Yep.
That game we had just shy of 500 yards of total offense. We had over, I think, 230 yards rushing. That's how you win the football game with Kyler Murray as your quarterback. You don't have him drop back and throw it 35 times for 400 yards. You mix in the run game, including using his legs, which he did very well on Sunday. And you get downhill and you open up passing lanes through that. You get him off motion, you get him in bootlegs, you get him in some play action rollouts, all that sort of stuff. And before you know it, now the passing game's clicking, the run game's still working with James Conner, and that's how you have an elite offense. And so the Cardinals showed that they're an elite offense. What impressed me was, yes, the Rams were undermanned, but defensively, the Cardinals just didn't care. This is a team that we saw with Cliff Kingsbury often play down to the level of the team they were playing.
Yeah.
And there was no case of that on Sunday. I mean, the defense went out, they balled. They really didn't let the Rams get any rhythm. The Rams had one scoring drive. That was a touchdown drive. Outside of that, they were, forcing a lot of long third downs. They were getting sacks. They held them on fourth down twice. Just a lot of great defensive plays that, I wasn't really expecting to see, frankly. And that's encouraging. So that's an encouraging sign for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Dennis Gardeck turned into prime Chandler Jones for you guys. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it was against a depleted offensive line for them. But no, I mean, Kyler was the main takeaway. Marv was great.
Yep.
Kyler Murray is incredible. And I am, and he's a guy that obviously you have been banging the drum for a while, but even I have him in my top 10. I never really moved him off. He is an elite talent in the game. He's a unique talent in the game.
Yeah.
But there's that one throw that he had on a corner route to Trey McBride where he just fit it right over the corner.
Yeah.
Right in a spot that McBride could only go get. He was a good athlete, and he went up. He got that ball. Just an amazing throw, amazing catch.
Yeah.
And he showed his talents on display.
He did that twice with a corner route. He did another one to Michael Wilson later in the game, or maybe it was earlier, but that one was a little bit more open, but same thing, right over the linebacker in the corner, right in between the safety. Only Michael Wilson is going to catch that football, and it's a big gain. I think it was a 20-yard chunk play to start a drive. And, I think about week 1 with Lamar, right, in that end of game where he's running around, rolling out, and he's got, I think it was Zay Flowers wide open in the back of the end zone. He throws it into the 7th row. And then yesterday we saw Kyler Murray running around, escaping the pocket, escaped Jared Verse twice, and then throws a absolute dart to Elijah Higgins sliding in the back of the end zone, right on the money. That's the difference that Kyler Murray can bring to your football team. It's not just that he can run around and he uses his legs. It's like he runs around to throw the football. Mm-hmm. And it's not just he runs around to run around. He runs around to find throwing angles and to, utilize guys downfield. We saw that on a, bootleg, the deep touchdown to Marv. We saw that on the scramble drill to Marv later. And then obviously that touchdown to Elijah Higgins was the best example of that all day, where he avoided, 3 guys that could have easily sacked him, somehow gets out of there and then just fires a strike into the back of the end zone. That was a crazy play to watch.
Yeah. I mean, the first touchdown to Harrison as well, just putting that in the back of the end zone where Harrison was the only guy who had the option to catch that ball.
Yeah.
And just made an incredible throw on it. So it's great to see the offense click there. Again, I think you texted me earlier, we know it was against a depleted Rams team, and we'll get to them in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's good to see you go in there and not get out coached, not get out schemed, be able to compete and see the culture change and be able to potentially have a pivot point going forward off of a game like this against a team that has quite frankly dominated you guys for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned it to you, but that was the first time the Cardinals had beat the Rams at home since 2014. So I was a sophomore in high school when that happened. And that's the thing. Carson Palmer started that game. He tore his ACL in that game.
Yeah.
That's how long ago that game was.
That's crazy.
I think about all the years where the Rams would come in here, and even if we had good teams, we'd get out coached, we'd get out schemed. And then there were years, obviously, where we didn't have the talent, and the Rams would just demolish us because they could out scheme us, and they were just making everything miserable for our offense and our defense. So it's just one of those things that to see yesterday, finally, a Cardinals team that, yes, the Rams were undermanned, but the Cardinals didn't even let them think that they had a chance in that game.
Yeah.
That game was over after the first quarter, early into the second quarter. It was 21-0. The Rams didn't have a thought of getting back into it after that. And so that's what was so encouraging, is to see the Cardinals finally have a head coach on the sideline that is competent enough to go toe-to-toe with the elite head coaches in the NFL. And we saw that last year, frankly. But again, seeing it this year now with more talent, it solidifies that.
Yeah, 100%, man. Rams, just tough for them. Like
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp probably going to IR. Puka's
Yep.
already there. Lineman injured, which is tough because like at full strength they
They're
were
great.
going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a very good
Yeah.
team, and just uh,
I
I
will
don't see
say
the light at the end of the tunnel for them this season.
I don't either, and I will say Aaron Donald retiring is not talked about enough.
No, not at all.
The things he could do to an offense by himself was incredible. Something we
Yep.
have not seen probably ever, if we're being honest. Obviously, there's been great defensive tackles, but I truly feel Donald impacted the game at a level that not many have, just with his speed and size and athleticism. But him retiring has left a hole on that defense that nobody will ever really be able to fill.
Yeah.
And it was noticeable on Sunday. Kyler had time to throw. He could move in the pocket. He didn't feel, out of sorts and under pressure the entire time. And even when he did, he was comfortable enough to step up or step around it, which
Yeah.
you could never say that when Aaron Donald was in blue and yellow on the other side. So that's the biggest thing that I think is going to hurt this Rams team in the long term this season. You don't have 99 out there, and that
Yeah.
defense does not look the same. The defense wasn't missing a bunch of guys like the offense, but that didn't stop the Cardinals from hanging 41 on their head. Like,
Yeah.
they are missing his presence, as we knew they would, but I think that nationally, that narrative has become completely undersold, and I think we just kind of glossed over it because of, one, how good Sean McVay is as a coach, and two, how good the Rams have been historically at kind of getting guys to fill gaps and replace talent like that.
Yeah. And that makes sense. I was texting Kyle a little bit after the game, and he was telling me that he feels like this game was low-key like the end of an era almost.
Yeah.
In the sense of like just a lot of guys injured. Stafford's old. McVay has talked about retirement before. No more Donald. Just how does it look, right? They
Yeah.
got their Super Bowl off of
They
the
did.
few years of kind of going
Yes.
all in, which is, makes it all worth it. But at the same time, it's definitely a tough pill to swallow to look at this
Yes.
and be like, man, it's probably coming close to the end.
Yeah, this is a callback. I heard this on a Cardinals podcast, but it's the same thing, and I remember it well. The Cardinals played the Rams in London in 2017, and Carson Palmer breaks his arm in that game, and we don't look good. I think they beat us like 33-0. I think it was McVay's first year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the last year of Bruce Arians in Arizona, and it was one of those things where you're like, okay, this is the end of the Cardinals as we know it. Like, Carson Palmer's probably done. Larry Fitzgerald's probably not, too far behind. Are they really going to keep some of these other guys around? And now you look across the sideline, it's like, now we're going to have to deal with this juggernaut in LA, that Sean McVay is a very good NFL head coach. Obviously, they had Jared Goff, playing at a way better level than he was previously.
Yeah.
And they were starting to look like a really, really competent team at that point, and a team that was going to be dangerous moving forward, which obviously they were. And I kind of feel like Kyle mentioned, that's how it felt yesterday. The Cardinals came in and said, we're tired of this. This is our time now. We're going to be the ascending team, and it's time for you guys to kind of move off to the wayside again.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's going to happen, because I still think Sean McVay's a great coach, but obviously he's flirted with retirement. I don't know how much he wants to go through a rebuild. And Stafford's only getting older. Kupp's only getting, a little bit older. Injuries are piling up. It feels like this could be a lost season for the LA Rams, which is crazy to say week 2. I mean, we were talking about them a few weeks ago as dark horses in the NFC West. And
yeah, fully healthy, I don't like, that's a good take. It's tough to, now, obviously.
Yeah, now hindsight's 2020, but yeah, at the point, it's like they had a ton of talent, but now it's like, man, where do they go from here? It only gets worse. They go to San Francisco week 3, who's coming off another loss.
Yeah. Yep. And their guys will come back healthy end of season when the schedule is really, really tough. So not super bright days ahead for the LA Rams. Good news for the Cardinals. So let's move on, Beach. I do want to talk about the Chargers, obviously, but there's a couple of games that I want to talk about first.
Yes.
I want to get to the Raiders and the Ravens. There's a couple of things that I want to mention kind of going into the Chargers game and why I'm excited for them. But man, the Raiders went into Baltimore, beat them 23-26.
Yeah.
Here's my take on that. I was I was not expecting that to happen, but I cannot say I'm surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I say that knowing that the Raiders are not a good team, and the Ravens are a good team, right?
Yeah.
But this week we had a lot of upsets. This week was a great reminder on how matchups matter, right? What
Mm-hmm.
is the strength of this Raiders team? It's defensive line. What is the massive weakness of this Ravens team? It's offensive line.
Yep.
And all day long, the Ravens could not get it going on offense, right? They could not get things consistently going, and the Raiders were in the backfield all the time, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, the Raiders' offense did perform up to a level that they probably won't do consistently against a good defense, but it comes down to it when you look at different teams in the NFL and you say, hey, like this is a matchup where this game is going to be closer. And if a couple things fall this underdog team's way, they could come away with a legitimate, with a huge upset, a
Yeah.
big win like this.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my takeaway there. Obviously, I think the Ravens are still a great team. They're 0-2, which doesn't look good. I'm not worried about them necessarily, but that was kind of my take off of this game. I don't know if you saw anything different.
No, the NFL, they always talk about any given Sunday, right? And another great example, Gardner Minshew's not looked at as this, franchise quarterback, but here he is leading a win against a two-time NFL MVP.
Yeah,
And just like you said, especially on the lines, I feel like if you struggle at offensive line, it is hard to get a lot of momentum going in your season because
I
you will
know.
have weeks like this where you look horrible up front and other teams just live in your backfield. And
Yeah,
it really takes a lot to overcome that. And I think that just yesterday, that was another classic example of offensive lines getting beat up front. It makes it harder for the Ravens to really do what they want to do. And it just kept the Raiders around. And before you know it, the Raiders hung around long enough and were able to steal a victory.
yeah,
And that's kind of all it takes sometimes in the NFL is just hanging around, not beating yourself, and letting the opponent make a little bit more mistakes than you do. And hey, shout out to the Raiders. That's a big win for them. That's a feather that Antonio Pierce can really put into his cap as a new NFL head coach and kind of say, hey, like we went into Baltimore and we took care of business this week. Like that's impressive.
yeah, absolutely. Brock Bowers, big day, 9 for 98. I did want to talk about one thing though. I was looking at different replies to certain things on by Ravens fans, and a lot of them are calling for John Harbaugh's head. Really interesting to me.
Interesting.
What do you
This is
think?
this is my take with John Harbaugh, and I think he's been there a long time. He has one Super Bowl to show for it. Eventually, with this much talent, there's always going to be the people that are like, we need to do something different.
Yeah,
And it's the hard thing. You're not getting rid of the quarterback. You're not really, getting rid of the other guys, necessarily. It's not like they have any other, high profile playmakers outside of Mark Andrews, kind of. And Derrick Henry, I guess, if you want to still put him in that category. So it's like, who are they going to turn to? And it's always the head coach.
yeah,
And head coaches know it. Like they sign up to basically get fired at some point. They very rarely do what Bill Belichick do and go to New England, find a quarterback, and stay there for a bunch of years, and then that's how it is.
yeah,
And even Bill Belichick, right? Like we saw that they moved on from him. So if
yep,
if teams can move on from him, they can move on from anybody.
yeah,
And I think that's probably what Ravens fans are starting to feel with John Harbaugh. It's like, look, like his Super Bowl was 12 years ago. And we've had Lamar Jackson, who's a two-time NFL MVP, and we really haven't done anything in the playoffs. Like
yep,
we haven't even I don't think they've made a AFC title game appearance. So like what are we doing here? And
yeah,
that's I think where you're going to start hearing more and more of those people chiming in if the Ravens keep losing games like this.
yeah,
John Harbaugh's a very good coach. I don't think they'll make a move. The Ravens, kind of like the Steelers, aren't a franchise that are just going to jump ship on coaches like that.
yep.
They've had plenty of opportunities to do that with him if they really wanted to.
Oh, he joined.
And
Big
our
conversation.
our Rams fan has joined.
We've paused
Wow.
the Rams conversation, Kyle, so that you don't have to feel pain.
What are we talking about right now?
We're talking about John Harbaugh.
Well, continue.
Beachy, I don't know if you finished your thought there.
No, I did. That
Cool.
was fine.
I was
All
real quick before we let Kyle cook here. Yeah, I'm curious to know. Like, I wouldn't get rid of him, but every time. I mean, someone's time runs out eventually.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if this is it.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. They're not going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Especially if they make the playoffs again and they look good. But at the same time, if they struggle and they somehow miss the playoffs, I don't think it's out of the question.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, Mr. Eggers, you are here. How are you?
I'm doing horrible.
Explain.
Lost all of his bets.
I just need this. I need this right now. So give me like 300 seconds, okay? That's fine. So I'm going to take you through my weekend, okay?
Oh, no.
Starts off on Friday night. What happens, Beach? What happened on Friday night?
The debacle in Manhattan, Kansas happened on Friday night. That's what happened.
Arizona football's college football playoff chances were shot. They were ruined. We were
I was also shot.
Yes. It was probably the angriest I'd been watching a college football game since I don't know when. But
I can tell you when.
We were embarrassed. Okay. So that's my Friday. Then Saturday comes and Arizona State wins. That makes it worse. Okay?
Well, Arizona State played Thursday, so
I know. No, I don't. But I thought that it was Saturday. I didn't watch the game. I saw the box score. But
yeah,
anyway.
so Arizona State won Thursday, which started that off to a horrible start.
Okay, yeah, Saturday. Nothing really happened then, I guess. Saturday was good. So actually Saturday what happened is I placed 4 parlays. And then Sunday, each of those parlays misses, but I have the Rams game to look forward to, okay?
With Beach.
With Beach. And key part of this story is that I drove Beach to the game, so I can't leave. So we get to the game, and within 3 seconds, we're down 14-0. And from then, I blacked out. Yeah. So I watched Arizona's college football playoff hopes die, and then I watched the death of the Rams dynasty in front of my very eyes within 3 days, and I lost hundreds of dollars.
Oh man, sounds like you need a hug, Kyle. I'm not gonna lie to you, man.
No, I need a call.
I certainly wasn't giving him one Sunday.
That's why. That's what I'm saying, man. Beach had no sympathy for you, obviously.
None.
No. It was in all seriousness, it was warranted. They had been our punching bag for the last decade.
We've been a lot of teams punching bags.
Yeah, but I mean,
not the Cowboys.
That's true.
Not the Cowboys.
For whatever reason. But yeah, no, it was in hindsight when I could look at this objectively, when my wounds heal after this year, I'd be like, yeah, no, I'm glad that Beach got that one. So proud of you, Beach.
Thank you. It's a long time coming.
It was.
Shout out to Matt Prater. We got to build the statue.
Maybe he can play left.
Man. We ready to move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Chargers, Beach. The reason that I wanted to bring up mainly the Ravens and the Raiders first was because of the matchup thing, right? And obviously the Chargers went in, beat up on the Panthers 26-3. This team they're a good football team, and I think it's easy to see in different facets of the game, as opposed to previous years. They're complete in a lot of different ways, and it excites me because, like, you guys have heard me talk about it before. I think good teams have a good offensive line, a good head coach, a good quarterback, and a good pass rush. Right? That's essentially, 4 components. I think I would probably add a good D line. That kind of morphs a little bit with good pass rush. But when I look at the Chargers and I look at how they would match up against some of the other top team strengths, they kind of have it, man. They have a good offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
good quarterback, good coach, good pass rush. The defensive line still needs some work, but I like the improvements that they made with some of the big boys in the middle there. Um, and I was cautiously optimistic heading into the season, and I am into full blown delusion right now because
Oh
I
boy.
can see how we can match up. Like I look at the Ravens. We play the Ravens later in this year, and I look at that, and I look at the Ravens' offensive line, and I say we are less talented than Baltimore. We have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack and Tui Pelotu and Bud Dupree, and they're going to eat against a team like that.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where it's like I have confidence heading into a lot of different games now where it's like we can match up pound for pound with any team strength. Great quarterback, great line, great pass rush, you name it, great coach. We're there. And that's a really, really interesting feeling. And I haven't really had that feeling in a long time. So that's my take on the Chargers, to be honest. There's not much to talk about this game from the Chargers standpoint. Like they dominated.
Yeah, they did what they had to do. They were the better team on Sunday, and they proved it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that, like you were mentioning, premium positions in the NFL: quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, pass rusher. You have to have elite players at those positions if you even want to be competitive in the NFL. You have to have a surplus of those players if you want to be a contender, and that's what we always see. It doesn't have to be at every single one of those positions, but a contender typically has a surplus at one or two of those positions, plus the elite quarterback, right? And with the Chargers, like, their offensive line is set. Joe Alt, Rashawn Slater, really manning the tackle spots. They're set there. Justin Herbert being able to throw the ball. The pass catchers aren't necessarily like this high quality, but they get open.
Dude, Quentin Johnson, man, he's him now.
Yeah, he might be.
He's not. I'm gonna stop.
We need to sell high on him immediately, guys.
Yeah,
we need to sell him.
We gotta sell him for Marvin Harrison Jr. and see if anyone bites.
So
Probably not. But we should have done that last week if we were going to do that. But anyways, the Chargers have that, and then just like you said, the pass rush. And shut down corners is probably the most important thing to have on a defense. And the pass rush is there. Now it's just, can it come together throughout the entire season and hold up? I think it will. I think they have the recipe for success. Obviously, they are in the division as the Chiefs, so that will be tough. But
we will not be winning the division.
But Kansas City has not looked great by any stretch of the imagination either. And
we do play them well.
I think the Chargers are set up for a lot of success this season, which is exciting for you, obviously.
Yeah. I think the start of a lot of other teams, I'll let you cook in a minute, Kyle. The start of a lot of other teams in the conference helps too. It's like 3 0-2 teams in the South, 2 of them in the North, who are supposed to be contenders, right? Like Miami losing their quarterback, things like that, where it's like things are shaping up decently for us right now with a good start. So, Kyle,
things are flipped on their head like they always are.
Yes. I think that with the Chargers' schedule, this team should win 11 games, like, at least. And it's kind of like, that's kind of what my point was going to be, Joe. What you just said is like, you are kind of the beneficiary of a couple of teams just like having things not go their way. But that's kind of what you need to put together like the 11, 12, 13 game win seasons. So I don't think that that's a disqualification of the Chargers. I think that it's just that they're going to be they're going to have a higher ceiling because of that. So I could see this team. This team should realistically be competing in every single game that they play this year. It's exciting. I'm excited for you, Joe. And I will be watching like the Squidward meme as you are now the football team in LA.
Even though you play in a building that's shaped like a ram.
Correct. We are renting for $1, I think. Panthers, man, Bryce Young got benched today in favor of Andy Dalton.
I wanted to talk about that.
I don't have much to say outside of I feel really bad for the guy. He's just not good.
I can't remember who tweeted it, but they were saying Bryce Young is another reason, or maybe it was about Kyler, and they were saying like, when you're that small, you have to have an elite defining asset about you.
Beach is getting in there, making it about himself right now.
No, I am, but I legitimately think it was about Kyler, and I was thinking about Bryce Young. Like, Bryce Young does not have an elite defining asset, and he's small, so it just makes it 10 times harder for him to be successful at the NFL level because he doesn't have elite speed. His accuracy has been terrible, even in clean pockets. And he doesn't really have that great, playmaking option. So then it's like, well, of course he's going to struggle.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing really elite about him. And he's kind of proving that. Now, I didn't think they would bench him. It's crazy to me that they would bench, their number one quarterback this early. But at the same time, if you don't think he's the guy, move on. There is no reason,
Yeah.
that sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, just because you drafted him number one overall and you traded a bunch to get him does not mean you have to make it work for 4 years.
Yep.
We've seen teams do that more recently. Obviously, I think of the Josh Rosen example, but teams move off their quarterbacks if they're like, yeah, this isn't what we want. This is not where we think we should be heading. And I think Bryce Young's just going to be caught in the middle of that, and I think he's out of Carolina after the season.
Yeah. No, they had to figure out what they have.
Yeah.
With the team. Like, is Bryce Young the problem? Is Dave Canales a problem? Is the team a problem? If Andy Dalton goes out there and sucks, then all right, there's work to be done around Young. We might be able to build. But you got to know more things. And it's one of the takeaways there is, like, I remember Colin Cowherd a couple years ago said, every great quarterback in the history of the NFL has had those defining talents.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one, whether it's size, speed, an incredible arm, right? The inability to get sacked, right? It's the only exception is Drew Brees. And it's like, Brees didn't have a great arm. He didn't have, he did great size. He was accurate, but right, it's one of those things and that's what you're asking of a quarterback who does not have those traits coming out of college, is you're asking them to be Drew Brees.
You're asking them to literally have elite accuracy and be perfect every single time they step on the field.
Yeah, you're asking them to be the only outlier to ever step into the NFL. So it's a tough ask. So,
shout out Drew Brees, man.
Yeah, dude. Tough for Young. We'll see if the Panthers rebound, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either. Moving on, Browns, Jags. Ugly game. Jags are 0-2. It's Beach, what you said early in the season is come to fruition. It's like they show the talent. There's a couple throws. Lawrence makes a game, right? There's certain things that happen. Brian Thomas had a couple of really big catches.
Yeah.
But there's no consistency. And I think it just comes down to coaching. It's like you have the talent and they have not been able to do anything with it. So I think Doug Peterson's days are going to be up soon out there.
Yeah. Doug Peterson is still riding on the coattails of Nick Foles' greatness.
For sure.
I cannot believe I just said that.
Holy.
But it's there's no consistency there with that team, and we've seen that for a lot of years now.
Yep.
And I don't see any reason that really changes. They'll have moments and weeks where they look great, and they'll have weeks like the first two where they really struggle and they don't look great. So
yeah.
Granted, Cleveland still got a very good defense, but it was not a pretty game.
Yeah, and that goes to matchups. Like, if the Browns are a bad team, but their pass rush is insane, and the Jags have a terrible line.
Yeah, you still got to block Myles Garrett. Good luck.
Exactly. So not much there, but the Jags need to find some new coaching. Jets, Titans. Jets win their first game in the Aaron Rodgers starting era. Breece Hall, he's awesome. Rodgers wasn't particularly great, but he did what was needed to do to let the Jets win. And that's kind of the point that I had before the season was, if Aaron Rodgers does anything decent, I think the Jets will be a good team. So the Titans put up a good fight, but was not enough there.
I think the biggest talking point of this game is that Will Levis gave us another fantastic meme where he is just swan diving at somebody for no good reason.
He's gonna get a bench.
Will Levis, dude. Oh man, he is
this rate,
so
we're
funny.
gonna have a catalog of Will Levis memes by the end of the season.
I texted one of our group chats and I said, Will Levis is what happens when you combine Blake Bortles and Mark Sanchez, and I think he's my favorite player to watch right now. Because he's an idiot on the football field, but he's a man child. He does whatever he wants. It's incredible.
I wish he had Jameis's personality, because then he'd be the funniest player in the NFL right now.
He likes mayonnaise, dude. He's disgusting. But Will Levis is hilarious, man. I look forward to watching Will Levis football because he is so funny.
Dude, his head coach hates him too, which makes it
No, dude. Dude, Brian Callahan is cooking, dude. That offense is working. Levis is just not doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, Levis is just
Did you see his interview after the second game?
Yeah, didn't he say like if we punted, we
No,
would have won? That was the
after
first game. What did he say after the second game?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, so after in the second game, there was like a very clear clip where it's on Callahan's face and he's yelling at Will Levis, "What the f are you doing?" and he said something along the line like they the media of course asked him about it after the game, and he said, "Yeah, I think the camera picked it up very clear. Like he can't do that. He is an adult and he should know how to and he should know how to play football." And I was like, "Oh my god! Like this is like the worst thing. Like
Oh my
he's
gosh.
not he's not pulling any punches. Like a week ago, he said we should just punt it every time, and then now he just doubles down and he has to clarify to the media that you are an adult."
See,
Coaches, when they do that,
I
are
don't know if I hate
hilarious.
that or if I love it. I
I
think I
think it's
lean towards I
hilarious.
love it. I mean, it's funny for sure. Yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
think
great.
coaches, like, that has been lost. Like, coaches are scared to call out their players now because of how much money they make, but, like, the old school coaches, like, that's always going to be their style. And so I kind of love it.
Yeah, that makes sense, dude. I mean, I will be tuning into Will Levis
I have
game
a
every
horrendous
week.
bingo story, and I'm
Oh
scared
no,
to share it.
please
I don't think you're
share
that
it.
scared.
I'm a little scared. But it just reminds me, like, Bruce Arians, when the Cardinals drafted DJ Humphries in the first round.
Oh
And they
my
were
god!
like, well, why isn't he playing? And Bruce Arians, like, gets up on the mic and he goes, well, right now his nickname's Knee Deep. And everyone was like, well, what does that even mean? And he was like, well, it's because I've got my leg knee deep in his ass every single play because he's messing up every single time.
Oh my god!
And the media was like, what? But, like, that's the type of thing. He's like, yeah, he's a first-round pick, and he's not playing like it. And I think that's what Callahan's like. He's like, Will Levis is a second-round pick? And he's like, he's not playing like it. He's playing like a guy that is playing, backyard football, and he's got to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. No, dude, we'll see. We'll see what happens with the Titans, man. Let's move on, though. Niners, Vikings. This one's interesting. Vikings pull off the upset. The Vikings are 2-0. I think we said before the season they'll win some games they're not supposed to. I still don't think this team will be great. Obviously, they lost Justin Jefferson to a quad injury. Don't know the severity yet. I'm going to go back again to matchups. Brian Flores is insane, and the way that he crowds the line of scrimmage, man. This kind of also goes back to my point where you can get out schemed on offense every single time if you don't have a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what happened in this game. I think we saw a great offensive scheme get out schemed and not be able to move the ball in the way that they wanted to when they wanted to and do things at will. Like players weren't consistently open. The run game was not efficient, right? Purdy was good, but he wasn't great. It's and I sent you guys a video today too of like how quarterbacks are almost at war right now with the Shanahan systems, where it's like the Shanahan system at its core does not give your quarterback freedom to change the play, right? And what happens when you combine that freedom from a great quarterback with the Shanahan system is the Rams with Matt Stafford when at their peak, right? Purdy doesn't check anything. He runs what's in front of him, and he accomplishes what's set in front of him. So, and I think once you take that away, what the Vikings did, they took that away. They won the game, right? They came away with an upset. So that was my take off of that. I'm not necessarily worried about the Niners. They're still great. This doesn't necessarily move me on the Vikings. I think they will still be towards the bottom of that division, but definitely a fun upset early season and cool to see kind of how the matchups work. And great minds on both sides of the ball going up against each other.
Yeah. I'm slightly worried for the 49ers because they are losing guys now. Like, it's
That's true.
kind of like the Rams situation where all of a sudden Deebo Samuel's now, looking at missing time.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey's on IR until at least week 5, or after week 5, I should say, because they were late putting him on there.
Yeah.
And so that leaves Ayuk, who missed all of the preseason and training camp, who has looked like that so far, and George Kittle, who obviously George Kittle had a really good day yesterday, but can Brock Purdy continue to make plays even without his star supporting cast? I think that's going to be the biggest question. Now, obviously, we know Kyle Shanahan, he's going to do a great job of getting guys open looks and scheming guys open. But just like you said, Joe, like at some point, there's going to come a time where Purdy's going to need to drop back and make a throw or make a play. Can he do it? I think from what we've seen so far in his NFL career, the answer is Mostly
No.
no. Yeah, mostly no. So I'm going to be interested to see how they look. Their schedule is light.
Mm-hmm.
They play they play the Rams this week, who we obviously know the Rams struggles.
That's a bye week.
Yep, they play the Rams, then they play the Patriots on the road, and then they play the Cardinals. So three very winnable games, honestly, for the 49ers.
Yeah.
But then after that is where it gets interesting if they start to have guys that are still out, because they play the Seahawks on a short week on Thursday. They then play the Chiefs, and then they play the Cowboys. So depending on the health of McCaffrey, Debo, and obviously some of the other guys, because they could always get banged up too, how does this season continue to unfold for San Francisco?
Yeah.
Are we gonna see guys get back healthy and they kind of get rolling? Or are we going to see the injuries start to mount up, and now you're trying to rely on Brock Purdy to carry your team, which that's not a place I would want to be in.
Yeah. That's a great question. I didn't even think about that. Like the guys that they were losing, things like that. Because it's like the players they have are unique skills. Like Debo, Christian McCaffrey, some of the more unique players that work within that scheme. Can they run? I think they'll still be able to do some of what they do, but I feel like with Ayuk being a true man separator, with Kittle being what he is at tight end, like I almost feel like they'll have to revert a little bit more to a traditional offense. I could be wrong, but
define traditional.
I mean, just like what you see from most teams that don't run Shanahan offenses, right? Where it's like, gimmicky is the wrong word because it has a bad connotation, but it's like there are some things where like you manufacture touches to certain guys.
I was gonna say it's a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, you manufacture your touches a lot of guys. It's throwing to spots, right? Like I don't know if you guys have realized how wide open people are on the San Francisco 49ers offense consistently, right?
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen in the NFL. And I think that comes from a great mind, obviously great talent to elevate that. But it's this way that Shanahan has the ability to move the defense where he wants them to place the offensive football or the offensive player where he wants to and get them the ball in that specific spot. That's kind of what my thought process is. Now they might have to go with this idea of like, hey, now we have to count on Ayuk beating his guy and Brock Purdy delivering the ball when he has beat his guy more consistently. That's kind of what I mean there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, the smoke and mirrors stuff can work when you've got a lot of guys that, you can get the ball to in space that can really make plays happen. But now that they're kind of losing that in a sense, I think, like you said, Joe, it's really going to come down to, can Brock Purdy get George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk the ball, separation in space, basically, without it being straight manufactured, because they're not going to be targeting some of the other guys as much as they normally would be.
Yeah. The good thing is that run game, the run game is so elite. Jordan Mason's been playing awesome. That's one thing that the Shanahan offense will always have, is a great run game. So we'll move on. Patriots, Seahawks, man, Geno Smith. I saw some statistic that said that he had 40 true dropbacks and he had 40 on-target balls. He was perfect, basically, throwing the ball during this game. Geno Smith is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this game. Love watching him throw the ball. He has a command of that offense. Jackson Smith and Jigba, breakout games, 16 targets, 12 for 117, man. Just insane.
Would you like to talk about it yet or no?
I didn't even talk about that part of my weekend.
Tell us what happened.
I traded away Jackson Smith and Jigba in Dynasty a day before he broke out.
What'd you get in return, though?
I got Jalen McMillan.
And?
A first rounder for the best team in the league.
At least you got that. The Patriots, they're feisty, man. They're playing hard for, I almost said Takeo Spikes. That's not his name. Who's their head coach?
Gerard Mayo.
Gerard Mayo. Yeah, other different linebacker for them. Takeo Spikes is a head coach.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. They're playing hard for him, man. That defense plays well. Jacoby Brissett, it's just not it. I can't wait to see Drake May. He got a little bit banged up, so we might see May earlier than we expect.
Give me May or give me death.
That's what we want. But that Seahawks offense, they were playing really well. So looking forward. They're on the
NFC West leading Seattle Seahawks.
This is true.
Disgusting sentence to say out loud.
Yeah, I really did not enjoy that rolling off the tongue.
Yeah. Let's move on to. There was a reason I changed my take before the season, but I did not expect this.
On who?
The Saints. 44-19 against the Cowboys. They just handed it to them, dude. And it's like when I looked into them more, it was like, okay, Clint Kubiak offense, like they're gonna be using a lot more motion. The offense is gonna be very different. It is a Shanahan branch offense. Um, how's that gonna work? And it's working great. Like the run game is great, like your classic Shanahan offense. Derek Carr has been efficient, and he has been going down the field. Right, it's one of those things where they want to get the ball out of Carr's hand consistently. They use a ton of play action. I think the stat was like he had 4 true dropbacks, 4, and it's working. So I mean, we knew their defense was good. Their offense will not be 40 plus points per game good, but we might be looking at the NFC South winner of a surprisingly decent conference up to this point. So
Are you
I
talking
don't know
about
if you guys
division or
have any thoughts on
conference?
the Saints. That's what I mean, division. But
Okay, I was like,
yeah,
wait.
division for sure, not conference. Yeah, I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on the Saints, but Alvin Kamara 4 touchdowns, just crazy.
Yeah, I think I heard the stat where they scored on their first 6 drives and they were all touchdown drives. That'll win you games.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
yeah.
So the offense has been really good. I am interested to see if Derek Carr can keep this up for an entire season.
Yeah.
He has looked very good through the first 2 weeks, and the stats prove that. But he can slump at times, as we have seen. He can be very hot and cold. He can have weeks where he's really good, weeks where he's really bad. So if they regress, I'm going to be interested to see how they look. But yeah, they took care of business against the Dallas Cowboys, and I mean they put that game to bed almost immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're off to a great start. I can't remember who the heck they played in week 1. Oh, it's the Panthers.
Panthers. Yep.
So obviously that's everybody's going to probably play well against the Panthers this year, but to do it against the Cowboys, obviously that everyone kind of views them as one of the better teams in the NFC. Like that's a really good win.
Yeah. I was watching a video from you guys know I love him. This guy Anthony Lawson on TikTok, where he was talking about how like the Saints do not have a good offensive line. We're supposed to not, and they've protected Carr. And again, it's the idea of like Kubiak is getting the ball out quickly, but also he kind of focused in on Micah Parsons, and like, dude, they had a crazy interesting plan for Parsons. They had like 2 levels of blockers at different points for Parsons to have to get through to be able to get to Carr. And it's like that's one of those things where like Carr might be able to keep up an efficient level of play, not elite, but efficient, and get the offense moving with them being able to get the ball out quickly, protecting Carr. Because Carr's biggest issue is when he's pressured. Like Joey Bosa said that. Like we know when we hit Carr, he gets rattled. And if they can continue to get the ball out quickly and negating a good pass rush, even with their bad offensive line through the schemes that they use, you could be looking at a 10-11 win team potentially in a supposed to be weak NFC South. Kyle, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm not ready to crown the Saints yet, personally.
Yeah.
I think that the Panthers, especially with Bryce Young at the helm, are just unequivocally bad. Like there's not a worse team in the NFL, and it's not even close. So I don't really care how bad they dominated them week 1, respectfully. The Cowboys are the Cowboys. They're due for a couple of these games where they just suck in the regular season.
Yeah, not wrong.
So I'm not saying that they don't look good. They've already massively exceeded my expectations for them, and I was wrong. I thought that they're just. If you would have told me that the Saints team was 2-0, I would have laughed at you. But yeah, like I think that this team can definitely still be in contention for that division. I just don't think that they're going to be like head and shoulders better than everyone else. I think it's still going to be the mid race that we thought it would be at the beginning of the year. And so I'll double down on that take. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see this team really being good.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fair. That'd be fun to see.
Thing is if they take care of division games, which they are apt to do,
they can win like 10 games at least.
Yeah, like there's 6 wins right there. You pick up a few more, you're right there. And they're like Joe was saying, like their division's not great, but I could also see their division because the Buccaneers and the Falcons are all kind of in that same range where it's like, yeah, they got really good offenses, but they don't really have much else.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? And that's kind of, I think, what we're going to see from that division. They might eat each other alive, where they all finish like 2-4, 3-3, 4-2.
Could happen.
That type of thing.
I think we're reaching the part of the season way earlier than I expected, to where like teams that were supposed to be like contenders are just not at all. Like they played the Packers and the Rams, who preseason were supposed to be both be playoff teams by the general consensus, and there's a very real chance that neither of those teams have won more than like 5 games, barring injuries. So, like if Jordan Love doesn't come back, that team's awful. And the Rams, like everybody on the entire team is hurt, so like they're effectively going to be underdogs in most of these games, and the Saints should beat those two teams if they were to play them next week. So, who knows? There's a lot of variables, but I still am not sold on them.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's move on. Commanders, Giants. Malik Neighbors breakout game. Giants lose. Jaden Daniels continues to move me. He was impressive again. Really curious to see if he continues to trend up. So not much else to say there. Just two bad football teams duking it out.
Shout out to the Commanders winning a game with no touchdowns and 7 field goals. That is legendary.
That's awesome, dude. I hate that so much. Buccaneers go into Detroit and beat the Lions 20-16. That one is an interesting matchup. That was strength on strength, defensive line, offensive line. Like, it's not like the offenses were great, but the Bucs got it done when they needed to. Jared Goff was, 55 passing attempts. Like, they were on the field. And they ran for 140 yards, 5 yards an attempt. They just couldn't convert. 2 picks, 2 really ugly picks as well.
That's the Jared Goff experience.
Yeah, so it has not been super pretty for the Lions up to this point.
And now they run into the buzzsaw of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah. So this is crazy. Like the Bucs had 14 first downs. The Lions had 26. 83 plays for the Lions to 47 for the Bucs. 33 minutes of on-field time for the Lions. 26 for the Bucs. Like,
can you just read the turnover stat?
What were the turnovers? I am looking to see that. 2-1 actually.
Yeah.
So
that's obviously your difference, right?
Yeah.
2-1. I was even surprised it was going to be 2-1. Like 2 turnovers, it's tough to come back and win games in the NFL like that. It
More than
really
doubled
is.
their yards. It's just crazy. So definitely like not a win you expected to see, but that's revenge for the playoffs.
Again,
and the Bucs are a good team.
If you keep teams around long enough, these teams will beat you.
Yeah.
You saw that with the Ravens. We saw it with the Lions. Like, you can't keep even just average to decent teams in games. Like, you have to put them away when you can. And the Lions couldn't do that this week. And then Amon-Ra got hurt, I believe, right?
Yeah. I think he'll be okay, but he did get hurt. Baker's a baller too. That's something that one of my takeaways from this game. Like, Baker's a baller.
That throw in LA changed that man's life.
He kind of did, man.
Rams legend.
Packers Colts. I will kick this one off, and I think I was a year too early on the Colts. I still have some hope for this roster, but it's going to be really hard to win games when the time of possession in your first 2 games are 40-20 and 41-19.
Oh dear.
Dude,
that's
the reason I still have hope is because it's like, I think like if their defense can figure it out. Dude, the Packers ran for 220 yards in the first half. Like, that is the problem with the Colts right now.
What?
Like, Joe Mixon had 160 yards on the freaking ground. Your offense isn't on the field. So it's one of those things where I still have hopes for them because I think the defense can regress to average a little bit, positive regression, and the offense can get on the field a little bit and actually find a groove. Like, Jonathan Taylor had 100 yards on the ground. Anthony Richardson had some ugly moments. But I said before the season, I'm going to take the good with the bad. I think it was a year too early. Ugly game for the Colts, just to put it frankly, though. So that's
big win for the Packers. If we're honest,
big win for the Packers.
Huge win.
0-2 would have been really tough for them with no Jordan Love, but getting to 1-1. I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like while he is out, but getting to 1-1, and if they can just go 500 in this stretch, that keeps you in it, right? In that wild card race in the NFC, more than likely. So that's a big win for them. Really picking that one up again, a game we probably wouldn't expect them to win without Jordan Love. But it helps when you can run for 230 yards in the first half.
Yeah. They play the Titans, the Vikings, the Rams, the Cardinals, their next 4.
Like,
and
they could come out 500.
Yeah, they easily could.
They should.
So,
And
yeah.
right now, the last reported injury date, like return estimate for Jordan Love, is that Rams game. So if things are on pace, they play the Titans and Vikings with Malik Willis, which I think they have a shot at winning both of those, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Will Levis will give us another meme, and the Titans will somehow lose. And then the Vikings will eventually lose with Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold is who we thought he was. And and then that's a realistic stretch for them to really just stay afloat.
Yeah. The Colts need to get that run defense figured out for sure. But until then, they are 0-2. The Steelers rise to the ugliest 2-0 on a 13-6 win against the Broncos. I don't want to say anything else about that. That was ugly and terrible.
If they finish with a winning If they finish with a winning record, I'm gonna be so mad.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. I told you guys they're inevitable. It's
play the Chargers next.
No, Joe, I'm begging.
This would be hilarious. The Steelers have the opportunity to do the funniest thing.
They win 10-6, and I'm just like, this is awful.
Herbert throws for 97 passing yards
on 29 attempts.
Ugh.
I know. Bengals Chiefs. Chiefs did it again, man. They.
Refs.
No. All right, good. Glad to hear that you don't believe in that BS. But Joe Burrow looks fine. You know, I think all the worry about him early was unwarranted. He looked great. Chiefs had a good defensive plan there. The Bengals just didn't capitalize. Like, they were in the red zone several times, had the chance to score touchdowns. They kicked field goals. You can't do that against the Chiefs. I texted Beach. It's infuriating how the Chiefs continuously are the best team and the luckiest team, in the sense of, like, it feels like they get everything to roll their way. But I heard someone say today that, like, it's one of those things where it feels like that because they take advantage of the mistakes. Not every team does that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
and they oftentimes make very little mistakes.
Correct. They're the best team for a reason. Yeah. I mean, they lost Isaiah Pacheco, which is a problem. I saw they worked out Kareem Hunt, which would be interesting. Pacheco's out for probably 6 to 8 weeks, I saw.
Samaje Perine, legacy run.
Samaje Perine, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if he comes back healthy.
Isn't he on IR?
Was he on IR? I thought he was just out. I don't know.
Oh, he might be out. I don't know.
I don't know. Regardless, I mean, you know, I think
they could put Joe at running back and they'd be fine.
Correct.
I don't know about
this. Just goes to show you, like, there's all the things of, Joe Burrow is the Chiefs' kryptonite. It's like he threw for 258 and 2 touchdowns. Mahomes threw for 151, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Right? Like, Mahomes wasn't great, but it's just like, again, it just goes back to
Mahomes. He wasn't even good.
Mahomes, yeah, Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. I'm not going to debate that, but he has a great team around him, and it's not like the quarterback gives you a better chance to win, but what's the team around you? And it's like when your great quarterback has an off day, can the rest of the team pick it up? They ran for 150 yards. The defense came up clutch when it needed to. The Chiefs are the best team in football, you know? So I'm excited to play them. Go for it, Kyle.
I think that there's a couple key statistics for this game that will shine some light that I was looking at. So, you know, we all know that this was a 1-point game. This could have gone either way. PI pretty much sealed the game for the Chiefs. But the Bengals kept it this close while the Chiefs had double their rushing yards. So they ran for 74 yards.
Yep.
And in the air, they're like, oh, okay, so that just means that, you know, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were eating, right? T. Higgins is out, and Jamar Chase had 30 yards, 35 yards. Like, there's so many variables to where this Bengals team, like, should have won the game. Like, honestly, they should have won this game. But because I think Jamar Chase is rusty because he hasn't played the whole entire offseason, as well as no T. Higgins, and then just not being able to run the ball, like they're not able to win this game. I think that the Bengals, like, are fine. They will be just fine. Like,
yeah, they started 0-2. I think 3 straight years now.
5 out of the last 6 years they have started 0-2.
Like, they'll be okay.
That's ridiculous.
And they have the Commanders and Panthers coming up next, and the Giants after a week against the Ravens. So
that's what I was
going to shit.
We are going to see a Jamar Chase 150-yard game. T. Higgins come back and probably do the same thing. and Joe Burrow throw for 400 yards in the next 3 weeks, probably, like in one
Yes.
game. So I'm like
Why will it be the Panthers game?
my panic meter is at a 0.5.
Yeah, 100%. But again, just goes to show you, it's a team sport. And I will say the Bengals, I'm worried about their rush defense as well.
Yeah.
If you hold Mahomes to 150 yards, 2 picks, only 2 touchdowns, you should win the game. Like, I know the Chargers have had games where Mahomes has been off. They played him well. We cannot win because we cannot stop the run. And that's what they meant here. So again, the Chiefs just executed when they had to.
Yep.
2 more games here. Bears, Texans. Man, the Bears offense is looking brutal. I blame Shane Waldron, who's coming over from Seattle. He is not a good offensive coordinator. Seattle hated him. I heard some stat where they are averaging the least amount of yards per play in the NFL. And it is like an abysmally low number. I don't remember what it is, but they averaged 3 yards on the ground. They averaged 4 yards through the air yesterday.
Can I ask a trivia question?
It's ugly. Let's hear it.
For you and Beach, no Googling. DeAndre Swift had 14 carries last game. How many yards did he have?
Well, I'm looking at it right now, so I'm going to let Beach answer.
6.
Okay, holy.
Not that bad.
That would be crazy. I have no idea.
18 yards.
It was over a yard, yeah. Over a yard.
He had 18 yards on 14 carries, 1.3
horrible
yards per carry. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's really bad.
Yep, it's not good. I will say, though, I bet there's a lot of people that are really angry right now. A lot of the Justin Fields hive that are saying, like, this is exactly the same exact thing, all the fun stuff. I don't think so. Like, Caleb Williams is an entirely different quarterback, and I think we saw it. Like, he was. Yep. I think it's interesting to see his growth. Like, he's not out there running like crazy around these guys. I think he's willing to stick in the pocket, and he scrambles when he needs to. But Caleb Williams is going through his progressions, getting the ball to where it's. I mean, he's checking the ball down because nobody else is open. And you saw the talent on some of the throws. I think it will click eventually. He's just going through some rookie struggles on a team that isn't yet ready to compete. And I think the coaching staff still has a big problem, or is a big thing to do with that. So
yeah, Caleb Williams, once his playmakers kind of find their footing, like Keenan Allen settles in and he gets healthy, and Rome Odunze comes back. Like, I think we're going to start seeing more plays be made than what we've seen so far. I think. Yeah. He's shown the talent. He's shown the ability to get out of the pocket. He's shown the ability to scramble, make plays with his legs. And after that, it's just going to be, the scramble plays that come alive with, some of the other quarterbacks we see.
Yeah.
He's going to start doing the same thing.
Yep. I also saw something that, like, he had 37 pass attempts and he was pressured on like 30 of them.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So, yeah, but he's going through his progressions, going through his reads, and he'll be great. The Texans, it wasn't pretty, but they got the job done again. And Nico Collins is a bona fide one, man. He's really turned into just one of the better receivers in football. I mean, that's a tough defense to go against. Like, they shut down the Titans receivers last week. It's a good cornerbacks. Nico's awesome, and CJ Stroud knows where to find him. They have a good connection there for sure.
Yeah.
So, anything else there?
I was going to call out one play from that game that I think was important. This game was really encouraging to me from like a Caleb Williams perspective, because I think that his playmaking ability is, like, he runs similarly to how, like, Patrick Mahomes will run.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right, like, Chris Collinsworth.
Yeah. Okay, relax. I'm talking about just stylistically. Like, he is not Justin Fields. Like, he's not going to
100%.
tuck the ball and flash somebody else.
He's not a one read and run.
Yeah. And there was one play specifically where they got the exact coverage they wanted. DJ Moore had the corner in the middle of the field, and it was perfect for a back shoulder. And Caleb had to run, was pressured, set his feet, and just missed the throw. And that would have effectively won them the game if he would have put the ball where it needed to be, and DJ Moore was, like, pissed. Do you know what play I'm talking about, Joe?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And those are just plays that you make when you play with people for more than 2 regular season NFL games. Yep. And so it's like, I think that with all of the bad that was in this game, with his playmaking ability and with his ability to put himself in a position to still win that game, all things considered. Yeah, like this was just a good, I think this was just a good rookie game for Caleb Williams to learn from.
Yeah, he'll continue to improve. Lots of good signs. The last game tonight, Falcons go into Philly, but a 22-21 win, man. They win. They touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins with like 30 seconds left. I am going to once again get on my fire Nick Sirianni train, one that I've been on for a while. He adds nothing to this team. Jalen Hurts, once again, didn't impress me. Made some good throws, but nothing that I thought was out of the ordinary, man. Saquon Barkley is a great running back, despite that drop. Like, that was a brutal drop at the end of the game that should have sealed the win for them. I mean, Philadelphia should have won this game. Like, they left several points on the board, kept the Falcons in the game. Beat, you've said several times, if you keep a team around long enough, they're going to come in and make that. And it was interesting to see Kirk Cousins looked really uncomfortable in the first half, and something changed in the second half. And I think he got comfortable. I think in that Achilles, there was one play in particular. It was an incomplete pass, but Kirk was pressured and he took off running, and he like rolled out to his right and just threw the ball out of bounds. And he moved quickly, and there was a lot of play action. The play calling was better, but seeing Kirk, I think, actually step into some throws and get some confidence in his Achilles is a big news for this Falcons offense. Against a good Eagles team. So
yeah, I said it before the season. I'm gonna stick by it. I don't like Sirianni either.
He's bad.
I think that he kind of, I don't know. Obviously, if Saquon catches this pass, right? Like, we're talking about them winning. But again, it's not a win they feel great about, right? It's a 21-15 home win at that point, and you're like, oh, we kind of snuck away with one against the Falcons team that they probably feel they're better than. And I think that's going to be the case with Sirianni. Like, he's got great talent, but when we see some of that talent start to miss games, A.J. Brown, their offense starts to sputter a little bit. They don't become as dynamic, and they kind of rely on Jalen Hurts to be a superstar. And like Joe said, he shows glimpses every now and then, but then sometimes he's not that great either. And you really need to have it more set up for him to win, kind of like we've talked about with other quarterbacks.
Yeah. And I've said before, I think Jalen Hurts is just fast Tua. That pulls him down into a tier that people don't think he is, but I think that's what I see out of the guy. His arm is not impressive. He happens to have huge quads and be fast. So, but that was my takeaways from the game. Anything else from the NFL week, gentlemen?
The season is over.
For you.
I've never been that worse.
Yes, you
have. Man.
You had to watch Jeff Fisher.
You did have to watch Jeff Fisher. And you had to watch LeBron go to the Lakers.
That was expected. Yes, that's fair. LeBron going to the Lakers ruined my life.
Oh, man. Beach, you got anything else?
I do not. I'm just glad the NFL is back.
Me too, man. I love football. Jim Harbaugh loves us.
Kyle wishes it was still the offseason.
He does. Thanks for listening, everybody. You can find us on TikTok, on YouTube, and on Instagram. We love you all. All the bingo squares, right, Kyle?
All the bingo squares.
Y'all have a good rest of your night. Deuces.
Bye.
Peace.